like I mentioned before, I'm really interested in the neuroscience work that you've done. So can you speak a bit about that and some of the insights that you've gained?
Yeah. So the use of neuroscience methods, for instance, and neuroscience theories into consumer behavior can have very different perspective. The perspective that people used to hear sometimes, especially when we talk about neuromarketing, for instance, it's very focused on the methods. So you probably already hear about fMRI study, when you use the scanner to see the brain functioning when you're exposed to marketing stimulus or stuff like this. So obviously consumer neuroscience is about method, but it's also about theory and how you can bring different perspective on one marketing issue. So I can give you an example if you want. I've been supervised by a professor in France, and he published a very interesting paper without any kind of neuroscience methods, but the way he approached the marketing problem was very interesting because he noticed that on TV advertising, for instance, you can see the product, and in some advertising you can see a character using the product. So it was interesting in to know, okay, what is the most efficient? And he brings this neuroscience perspective, and he said, in neuroscience, we know that we have a type of neurons in the brain, in the motor cortex in the brain, that called mirror neurons. Those mirror neurons help us to imitate and to reproduce the same movement, the same gestures of other people when we observe them. So let's say that you want to learn a new sport, something like this. The first thing that the coach will tell you is just watch before to execute the movement, because when you watch the movement, the brain is already reproducing the same movement. It's like simulating the movement. And once you have to produce the movement yourself, then it's much easier, it's more fluent. So the thing is, in the advertising, for instance, if you see someone using the product, as a consumer, when you see that, then probably the brain is already reproducing this gesture, is simulating the experience of using the product. So he compared two types of advertising. One advertising is only showing the product, and on the other advertising, you see a character using the product. And the results were very, very interesting because you see that when you have an advertising, when the character is using the product, all the metrics like attitudes toward the brand, attitudes toward the product, intention to buy, and so on, were significantly higher than for the advertising when you only see the product. So that's a typical example where you can use neuroscience without any fancy methods like fMRI and so on. You just bring another perspective on a very common topic in marketing research. Advertising efficiency is very usual, but bringing this new perspective from neuroscience bring new results and a new way to perceive how does advertising work.
Right. So that's really fascinating. I suppose when you see someone using a product, is there like some neuroplasticity that's occurring as your brain is coming up with that gesture itself or trying to imitate it?
I'm not sure about neuroplasticity, but what I'm sure about is that there is, as I said, there is this type of neurons we have in the brain,
Right.
and those neurons work. I mean, it doesn't work only for the advertising. Obviously, it works for even social interaction. We are discussing together now, and I can empathize with you because of those neurons. I can see your facial expressions, and then I can adapt my own facial expressions to be sure that we have this natural connection between us. So. And we can do this because part of our brain is reproducing the same type of gestures. So I'm like resonating with you because of those neurons. So the same goes for the advertising. You're telling a story through the advertising. You see people using the product. They have fun with the product. They get some pleasure, positive emotion. So when you watch the advertising, you are also in the story. You're like anticipating what it would be to use the product, to get pleasure from using the product. So you're still convinced that this product might be good for me, because the brain has already this first experience with the product, even though it was not for real. It's just like a simulation through the advertising. But the fact is that the brain is recording this experience as a true experience.
So is that like a form of embodiment almost? Where
Sorry, what?
embodiment?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's a type of embodiment. So you're like, experiencing all the feelings and the experience with the character in the advertising with the product. That's why sometimes I like the car maker advertising because most of the time, especially when they target family, they don't show the product. They show how you can have fun with the product. So you see all this family, they are all smiling, they're all preparing for the weekend, they have fun. You see they are very happy. They are connected, they're happy. And why they are so happy? It's because of the car, obviously. But you don't show the car, you don't show the engine performances and stuff like that. People don't care about this. They care about what I will feel when I will drive my car with my family. And what you will feel, then you will feel happiness. And then you're seeing this happiness through the advertising and say, okay, if I want to have the same experience, I should probably consider to buy this car.
Right. Well, it's really interesting you say that because most car advertisements or ads, they usually do just have a bunch of smiling people going on an adventure, having a good time. I can't really remember the last time that they talk about the specs of it or how fast it drives. It's all about beautiful surroundings
Yeah.
and fun people. So that's really interesting.